Okay, welcome everybody. I see that we have a few people joining tonight that are maybe not what we would call regulars. We are learning the Sefer Derech Hashem. We've made it pretty far through the Sefer, Bli Ayin Hara. We're all the way in Chelik Dalet, the fourth part of the book. And this is where the Derech Hashem goes through a lot of the specific mitzvos. And he ties them in to the framework that he's created, kind of the big picture of God's plan in the creation of the world, and where each of these mitzvahs fit in. And right towards the beginning is one of the longest chapters, which is chapter 4, which is about Shema, Kriya Shema. And what we've been learning is that Kriya Shema is a very powerfully packed mitzvah, and that first sentence in particular of Shema Yisrael is really extremely powerful, more than maybe we would have ever realized. So far, the Ramchal has enumerated two specific concepts, which he has explained as being extremely central to the purpose of creation, to be honest. That's not an understatement. And that is Yichud Hashem, the oneness of Hashem, that not only is there only one God and no other gods, but he explained that the Jewish concept of Yichud Hashem, of the oneness of Hashem, runs much deeper than what your average person would refer to as monotheism. But really, it's a much bigger picture that everything in the world really depends on Hashem. And therefore, in a certain sense, everything is one. Everything is the one Hashem. That is the idea of Yichud Hashem, which is expressed very clearly in the first pasuk of Shema. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. God is one. The other concept, which is also very central, is the concept of Kabbalas Ol Malchuso Shemayim, which literally means accepting the yoke of heaven, which in other words means accepting Hashem as the ultimate king and the ultimate sovereign, and bearing that yoke, accepting his dominion, and being willing and pledging our service to him. So we continue now with paragraph Dalid on page 282. V'hinei, kfar be'arnu b'chelik rishon. We've already explained in the first chelik, the true completion of the creation, it is drawn from Hashem's perfection. So the perfection of the world is drawn from Hashem's perfection. He's the only one with true perfection. This is also a result of the mitzvah of Shema. When we bear witness to his oneness, and when we declare that everything depends on him, then Hashem himself avails himself to us. He makes himself available to the entire creation that they should become perfected through his perfection. And then all of existence is able to become perfected, is able to become fixed through that true source, which is Hashem himself. As we've mentioned. Now here the Ramchal goes on to add a new dimension to this. A condition of this mitzvah. Interesting that he doesn't refer to this as an independent aspect of Shema, but rather as a condition of the first two aspects that we've discussed. A person should decide in his mind, kind of a complete decision, limsor nafsho al yichud yisbarach, to be willing to give up his life for the oneness of Hashem. This is the idea this is what we refer to as mesiras nefesh, or the idea of someone being Moser Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem, giving one's life up for the sanctification of Hashem's name. So someone has to think in their minds and come to that conclusion that they accept that upon themselves. Or the Kabbalah love kol yisurim uminimisa al kiddush shemu yisbarach, and to accept on themselves any types of affliction or even death, God forbid, for the sanctification of God's name. An amazing idea that someone who contemplates this and accepts it and decides in their mind that this is something that they're willing to do, that thought itself is accepted by Hashem as though the person did it, which is extremely powerful. From this idea as well, there is tremendous benefit that comes to the world and a corrections, fixing to the cloud. And this is amongst the orders of Hashem's divine wisdom, amongst his creations and their essence, who there is everything that exists is on a certain level. According to a precise measure that Hashem in his divine wisdom determined would be appropriate. And the general idea of these levels, so these levels that he's describing right here are levels within which darkness is able to exist and impurity is able to spread. There's levels of that. And he'll explain that more in just a minute. This is with a given measure, the hainu. That means to say, Hashem would not allow for darkness to reign supreme and for impurity to be so prevalent that it would completely corrupt the world. Hashem would not allow that. If it would reach that level, we would all have to be destroyed and obliterated, which is exactly what happened in the time of the flood. Darkness and impurity was so rampant that essentially Hashem had to press the reset button. It wasn't able to be corrected as is. So Hashem, in the post-Mabul, in the post-flood reality, which is the world in which we live today, God set a limit. When he made that promise to mankind that he would never destroy the world again, the Ramchal explains there's really a step before that. Hashem was really setting a limit to the dominion of evil, to the powers of darkness. Hashem put a cap on it. He capped off the powers of darkness, and he says, no, they're not going to be able to go as far as they did in the time of the flood. It was set at a level where they would not be able to corrupt the world. However, things were left so that they would be mundane as opposed to holy. They could be dark instead of being clear. He said it that this is the way that things would start out. However, as things progress, there's the ability to add more light, more illumination, more elevation, and more influence of goodness. And then there would be an elevation from this lowly level. And then the creations of the world would be able to reach a level of sanctity and clarity, according to the level that is befitting for them to achieve in this world. And again, this is the Ramchal is touching on the concept that he laid forth in the very beginning of the Sefer, that ever since the first sin of Adam HaRishon, the spiritual level that we're able to achieve in this world is limited, which is why we need to have Misa, which is why we need to have Tchias HaMeis, we need to have a resurrection of the dead, we have to have an Olam Haba. That's all because there were limits put in place to the ability of our spirituality, what our spirituality can accomplish ever since that first sin.
Rabbi Alt,
Yes.
is he saying that the generation of the flood was worse than the Churban or the Shoah?
That's a great question, and in a simple sense, it seems like yes. Simply put, it seems like, it's hard for us to judge these things without having any real experience of what the generation of the flood was all about. But simply put, he makes it sound that way, that yes, there was a level of darkness, a level of corruption that occurred then that made the world more distant from God than they were at any later point in history. Yeah. Okay, the Ramchal continues, all these matters are measured with awesome wisdom. Each thing with its appropriate boundaries. No less, no more. Hashem measured what was appropriate for them as a starting point, as a primary, as a basis. And this was also divided into many different specific levels. And what would be appropriate for them as they advance. And that also is divided into many different tiers. So that's a fascinating comment. Hashem even measured the times throughout history when it would be appropriate for spiritual advances of mankind. As we'll explain further with Hashem's help. Okay. V'hinei, b'kol yom v'yom, every single day, tzar she'yischadish hashpa'a v'ha'ara b'nevro'im shetala osam m'madrega hashfala hasharoshis b'hem v'yitem ben kiddush u'bihirus k'mush zachar. Every single day, we need to be mechadish hashpa. We need to renew this divine energy, this divine influence, the ha'ara and illumination amongst the creations, to raise them up from the lower base level and give them sanctity and clarity, as we've mentioned. So this is not something that it's a one and done. It's not a level which is achieved and then you stay at that level permanently. It's a constant job that every single day we have to we have to have new efforts to elevate ourselves to bring greater sanctity. V'ulam sidra chachma ha'elyona mitzvus ha'ara hazos. Hashem in His divine wisdom, He has set for this illumination hamischazik ma'averes hachoshech shel olam umagberes bo uvebruav hayakar v'amala v'kedusha shezacharnu. Hashem has given it the strength to push away, to remove the darkness of the world. And to overpower it. And Hashem made this depend on the actions of his creations, of the lower beings, just like every other divine spiritual influence. Fascinating idea. The one thing which this depends on more than anything else, the Ramchal writes, is a person being willing to give over their life for the sanctification of Hashem's name. That brings greater light, greater sanctity into the world, greater divine energy than anything else. However, this itself, this idea of self-sacrifice has levels itself. The sacrifice, the total ultimate sacrifice, of a person literally giving up their life for Kiddush Hashem, that accomplishes the greatest and strongest, most powerful light. The attacking Babriya Tikkun Atzum, and it corrects things in the world in a very awesome way. And it increases the sanctity and the clarity in a very, very tremendous way. Someone being willing to give over themselves in thought, to decide to themselves that I am willing to sacrifice my life for Hashem. Just that thought, that decision, that that kind of oneness of mind. It also will draw down the same nature of hashpa, the same type of spiritual energy. Ella, but it would not be as powerful. According to what is necessary for the advance and for the development of the world, what's appropriate on a daily basis is this mesira b'machshava, this self-sacrifice in thought. V'hu hanasa b'pasuk Shema. That is what we are accomplishing with that first pasuk of Shema Yisrael. V'atol ha'yotzes hi hamshachas hashpa ha'kiddush v'habihirus v'briya kula los the ksatz ilu min ha'chova v'ha'choshech shibam k'medrigas ha'sharashis. So says the Ramchal, Hashem has determined that that level of self-sacrifice, sacrificing oneself for Hashem, the level which is accomplished through thought and through contemplation and through deciding that one is willing to do that mentally, that has enough of effect on the world in terms of bringing down that positive spiritual energy to provide the world with what it needs on a daily basis. And so therefore, what the mitzvah of Shema, Hashem is building in to our avodas Hashem, to our service of Hashem, a kind of built-in flow that through our recital of Shema twice every single day, with having in mind that concept that this phrase, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, that Hashem is our God and Hashem is one, that these are beliefs that we're willing to give up our lives for, that thought, just thinking that twice daily, it brings down that same genre of spiritual energy to kind of fuel the world to continue progressing forward and advancing forward. Now, I just want to pause here for 1 second because Paul Osborne, he mentioned the Holocaust, and I couldn't help but think about it. In most recent history, think about it in light of what the Ramchal is saying. Let's we're well familiar with the kind of the very, very high level of Mesiras Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem, giving up one's life for sanctifying Hashem's name. What we see here in the Ramchal is that it's not just the highest order of mitzvah, but it also has the greatest effect on the world, meaning the most powerful positive effect, the the greatest illumination of divine light and clarity comes through that mitzvah. That seems to be what he was saying here. And it just was making me wonder as I was reading that when we think from a historical perspective in terms of, before and after the Holocaust and how, Jewish communities were beginning to decay in the pre-Holocaust generations, with different movements and ideologies that were just eating away at Torah observance. And then we suffered such tremendous, unspeakable losses in the Holocaust itself. But if we think now, looking at what happened afterwards, the creation of the state of Israel, the Jewish presence in Eretz Israel, and the booming, thriving, religious communities that we see today, it makes one wonder if all of that was really a result of the energy of that light, that illumination, that divine elevation that occurred through that mitzvah of Mesiras Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem. It makes one wonder. And the Ramchal himself said that Hashem measures everything, and he has specific measures in mind, and even specific times, that the timing of everything is measured. So it makes me wonder, we're not in a place to make these determinations, but certainly looking back at history and then reading these words of the Ramchal, it really makes me wonder. That was just a thought that occurred to me. Okay, let's see this next paragraph here. And here the Ramchal wraps up what we have covered in this entire chapter so far. Nimsa klal imin pasuk rishon shel Shema hu. What we have determined, what we have learned, is that what is encapsulated in that one first short pasuk of Shema is the following. Number one, ha'edus v'hoda b'yichuda yisbarach b'chol havchonosav. The testimony and hoda, admitting, confessing to the oneness of Hashem in all of its facets. That's one. Two, kabbalas o Malchuso, the acceptance of the yoke of Hashem's kingdom, v'hamlicho al kol habrim kulam, and appointing him, crowning him as king over all of creation. Number three, the gamor b'da'atenu, resolving in our minds, deciding in our minds, lihimasar al kiddush shmo, to be willing to sacrifice everything for the sanctification of Hashem's name. Those are the three components to that first pasuk of Shema. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, as the Ramchal lays it forth. The told us Kol Zed, the result of all this, Baruch Hu Machazik Memshel Zichuda Al Kol Abriya, that Hashem strengthens the memshala, the control, the dominion of his oneness over the entire creation. The kana, the ishtabed kochos hara, he subjects and he subordinates the powers of evil. V'schazek hatov, he strengthens good. V'sgabero, and he empowers it. V'himatzo yisborach labriya shetitolebo v'sishtalim b'shleimuso. And Hashem makes himself known to the creation, that we should be able to become perfected through his perfection. And he provides that spiritual energy, that flow, which is needed to elevate the entire world. And he provides a clarity and a sanctity according to what is proper. All of that with one pasuk of Shema Yisrael. Unbelievable. Amazing. That is really, really powerful if we think about it. The three parts to what we're doing. I think if we really internalize this and we take this with us, we can transform this mitzvah that we're doing twice a day, this mitzvah of Shema Yisrael that we're doing, and we can really supercharge it with these three things: the oneness of Hashem, accepting Hashem as King, and the decision, the mentality that we're willing to sacrifice it all, even our own lives, to sanctify God's name. Those three things. And then when we do that, the results are awesome. That it strengthens the powers of good, and it provides sanctity, clarity, divine light for the entire world. All of that is accomplished with Shema. Okay, so now that the Ramchal has finished describing, the first pasuk of Shema, he now moves on to the rest of Shema. So we're now up to paragraph Zion, number 7, which is on page 288, 289 in the classic Feldheim translation. In conjunction with this Tikkun HaGadol, this great Tikkun, hard to translate that word, fix, correction, but in conjunction with this great Tikkun, Hashem combined a Tikkun Acher, another Tikkun. It is included in that praise, that we recite immediately after that first pasuk of Shema, the Hainu, which is Baruch, Shem, Kavod, Malchuso, L'olam Va'ed. Blessed be the name of his kingdom's glory forever and ever. V'zeh. This is Kihine Kvar Be'arnu. We've already explained Sheklal Kol Hashpa'os of Yisbarach V'Aros of We've already explained how all of Hashem's divine lights are drawn down through different means. But they're all rooted and they all depend on Hashem's oneness and his true perfection. All of Hashem's creations, they operate with a different gugulim, with different channels for all these different hashpa'as, all these different spiritual energies. The end of it all is that when you put it all together, it's to achieve true perfection. Hashem has set it up that we're only going to achieve perfection when we put it all together. When we access all those different avenues, all those different mitzvahs, all those different ways to connect to Hashem, only then will we achieve true perfection. Being that v'noda's kol hashpos she'enan ela anfei hayuchod v'aderech la'agia harbu elav hine b'yos ha'kavana b'pazak rishon litlos ha'kol b'yuchod k'mosh ha'zacharnu. Okay. So these last few lines of the paragraph, what he's describing is that even though it's true that there are many different channels, many different mitzvahs, many different actions, many different prayers, different things that we do that all connect us to Kadosh Baruch Hu, and they all tap into that divine energy in different ways. It's all connected to Yuchad Hashem. That's the central concept, the oneness of Hashem. All of those different channels are connected back to that. V'hinei hanolad mizeh b'bruim hu. The result of this is as follows: She yashre shmo alehem v'tis dabek bam kedushaso his dabkus gadol v'yishel debam v'yamshichim acharav tamid. Okay. The result of this in regard to Hashem's creations is as follows: that he bestows his name upon them. Hashem clings to them in a very great way. And he draws them after himself. So when mankind engages in Yichud Hashem, in understanding the oneness of Hashem, because it is so central, as we've mentioned, it creates this super connection where Hashem bestows himself upon him. The person is connected to Hashem, drawn after him, perfected in Hashem's perfection, which is the goal, the end goal of all of creation. This is the end goal of the creation of the world. This is what the entire world will come to appreciate at the end of time, is the oneness of Hashem. Being that is the case, Hashem's will is therefore being fulfilled, and his honor is because his glory is becoming very great. This is the primary crowning through which his creation crowns Hashem, and through which Hashem becomes great, kaviyachol, so to speak. It's through man appreciating that Hashem is one. Currently, at this moment, this is only able to be accomplished through spiritual beings. They, let's say the angels, for example, they're perfectly pure and sanctified. And Hashem's name dwells on them. His kashrus gadol, and Hashem is bound to them very greatly. And they are literally drawn after him at every moment. And his glory is greatened through them. Right? This would perhaps be the concept of the angels singing God's praises. You know, the different shiros that they sing is giving honor, giving glory to Hashem. However, on the lower creations, the physical creations, this is not complete. We are not complete. Ra, evil, is mixed within us. We've not been purified from it. And so to speak, Hashem's glory has not been in its full. Hashem's glory is not fully. It has not achieved its full greatness amongst us. The angels, according to their level, the angels are able to offer this praise. Baruch, Shem, Kavod, Malchuso, because they have a true appreciation of the totality of the Yuchud of Hashem and of Hashem's Malchus. So they can say, blessed is Kavod Malchuso La'olam Vo'ed, the glory of Hashem's kingdom. Achatachtonim, but the lower ones, meaning us ourselves, so we can't offer this praise. We're not befitting for it. we don't have the full exposure. We don't have the we don't see it for what it truly is. Only Yaakov Avinu, he reached this level right at the moment that he passed from this world. And he was able to do this when he heard them, his sons, recite the words Shema Yisrael as he was on his deathbed. Then the elder, meaning Yaakov, responded, Baruch Shem, Kavod, Malchuso, because at that moment that Yaakov Avinu was passing away, he had reached the level of an angel, literally. That he was able to rise above that original sin and be totally pure, where he was able to appreciate the oneness of Hashem and Hashem's kingdom for what it truly was. And therefore he was able to recite out loud that praise that only the angels offer of Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso Olam Va'ed. V'nimsa, what we discover is Shemitzideinu Inu Inyan Zeh. We're really not befitting for this. Mimenu Nitein Lanu Mitzido Shel Yaakov Avinu Alav Shalom. We were given a little bit of what Yaakov Avinu had, what the angels have. Therefore, we do say it, but we say it quietly. Zulas Yom Kippurim, except for one day, the day of Yom Kippur. Shenes Alimbo Yisrael L'Madregas Hamalachim, because it's on that day that we rise up to the level of angels. As we'll mention in its proper place with Siyat D'Shmai with Hashem's help. So just to recap, this special praise of Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso Olam Va'ed is almost a reaction to having a complete appreciation of the oneness of Hashem and the grandeur of Hashem's kingdom. And therefore, it's befitting that when we say the pasuk of Shema Yisrael, that's the time to say it. Because that pasuk of Shema Yisrael, it incorporates both of these two things, the Yichud of Hashem, Hashem's oneness, and Malchus Hashem, Hashem's kingdom. So that's the time to say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso Olam Va'ed. But we're not on the level of angels. We're not perfect. We're human beings. And we have impurities mixed in with us. So we don't see the fullness of it. So we don't dare say it out loud. That would be too strong of an expression. That would be almost like a lie. It would be false. It wouldn't be real to our true, where we really are, our level. So therefore we whisper it, because we are making contact with those realities of Yichud Hashem and Malchus Hashem, but on a much lower level. So therefore we whisper it, except for one day a year, which is of course Yom Kippur. When that one day we are totally pure, and then we are able to have a higher appreciation of Hashem's kingdom, and that's why we're able to recite it out loud. So that is the Ramchal's explanation for that line that we whisper, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso Olam Va'ed. Why do we say that specifically now after the first pasuk of Shema? Why do we specifically whisper it? That is what we just learned with this last two paragraphs. Okay, I'm going to hold it here for tonight. We're up to paragraph Ches, page 290 in the Derech Hashem.